All right. All right. Well, thanks for your patience. We're just waiting for folks to join. Usually we find that people kind of trickle in once we get going. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I appreciate you joining us for the Aligned Habits Workshop today. Uh, Today's purpose is to align your habits with your big goals to become who you're meant to be. We do this in various ways. We also have a True Self project coming up, which is a 30-day habit challenge. And what we find is to live the life of your dreams, to live as your true self, you got to start with those habits that allow you to be who you're meant to be. So we're going to break the cycle of discouragement in realizing habits and goals, as well as everyone sets resolutions at the beginning of the year and then doesn't hit them. So we're going to work on those. I'm on vacation right now in beautiful Vermont, so the background behind me is actually real. These are mountains back behind me, and not just a picture. So I'm happy to be here with my family, and happy you're joining us here today. Today, we're going to start out with a journal prompt just to get you thinking a little bit. And as you saw in the introduction, we do these every single week. We have various amounts of people joining us. Today's a little bit lighter. I think a lot of people are on vacation, but happy that you're here, and want to start with a journal prompt. So we will do this throughout today's workshop, where you just take a few moments to reflect, think, and write down what you're working on. So we're going to start with a journal prompt today that is, what's one habit that you wish you could stick to that would change your life? What's one habit you wish you could stick to that would change your life? So we're going to spend just, maybe 1 to 2 minutes, maybe 60 and 90 seconds on that. And then we'll come back and we'll dig into the content today to help you set the habits that are going to help you live the life of your dreams. All right, go ahead, journal. What's one habit that you wish you could stick to that would change your life? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing those. Let's start bringing this back. And thanks for giving some thought to those. I saw some good ones there, which we see a lot: exercising, yoga, cooking, or at least cooking healthier. I appreciate you guys sharing those. So thank you. And those are ones that pop up regularly. And yeah, I did say, as a certified yin yoga instructor, I too don't always, I just got certified in December, and it was more for my own education and learning. and I don't teach yet. But even making yoga a routine after getting certified back in December is still tough to me. And you got to schedule that time. So you won't be surprised after me saying that one thing we typically do at the beginning of each of these sessions is to get grounded. So I want you to just take a minute. We're just going to do a little bit of breathing, getting fully present here so that we're ready to do the work that we need to do in order to focus during this course today and to do some of the internal thought on our big goals and our habits. So I want to start with a breathing exercise, a little bit of grounding just to become fully present. I want you, if you can, to close your eyes or drop your gaze down low if closing your eyes is uncomfortable for you. And we're just going to take a few deep breaths. And I want you to start by breathing in deeply and then holding your breath at the top and then sighing it out. So we're going to breathe in deeply, count of four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And sigh it out. All right, we're going to do like two more of those. Just again, eyes closed or your gaze down low. Breathe in deeply through your nose. Fill little sips all the way up to air. Fill your chest up and then hold it at the top and sigh it out. Let go of all the emails and the texts and the social media and running around, on family vacations and the beach and mountains and things. We're going to take one more of those. Deep breath in. Keep breathing in deeply all the way to the top of your lungs and then hold it and sigh it out. Let it all go. All right. Hopefully now you're a little bit more present and ready to really focus on your big goals and setting your intention. And it's great. I was just writing our newsletter for the fall for middle of August right now, heading into September. And it's really about setting your intention as we head into September. So it's a great time you're joining us to go through, aligning your habits with your big goals so that you really hit the ground running in September as we head back to school and work. So if you've struggled to stay consistent, whether that was, eating, exercise, yoga, work habits, etc., getting good sleep, things like that, it's not that you're falling short at all. It's just that you've been forcing a version of success that wasn't necessarily aligned with who you truly are. So today we're going to reset that and we're going to rebuild from your true self. So I want to discuss the workshop flow a little bit today. What we're going to cover today is why most goals fail, as well as how to set the right goals, how to build supportive habits, and then how to get back up when life throws you off your routine. In other words, how to be resilient and overcome challenges. So, I want to make sure everyone knows, and I'm glad everyone put things in the chat without being prompted, but up front, please feel free to share. This is interactive. By all means, get our feedback, any questions you have, let us know and we can answer those. So, feel free to come on camera, to start your video, come off of mute. You can raise a hand either, physically or press on Zoom, the raise hand button. And, also feel free to share in the chat too. So we like seeing everyone sharing here. So happy to have everyone here. If you're joining us a few minutes late, welcome and happy to see you here. I want to start out with a quote by Napoleon Hill, who said that desire is the starting point of all achievement. Not a hope, not a wish, but a keen pulsating desire, which transcends everything. So the point in that today is if you have a desire to make this your best year ever and move past all that's held you back from living in complete happiness and bliss, from hitting your habits, then we're going to turn that desire into action. So we're going to mold that burning desire for love, happiness, and success into real action that you can take today to live the life of your dreams. We're going to do this by aligning your dreams with your habits. So how do I know this works? I know it works because I've done this. I've done this over the last 7 years, and it took me a ton of trial and error and a ton of learning to get to a point where my goals and daily habits are aligned so that I can live the life of my dreams every day. I mean, look where I am right now. It's absolutely beautiful. Loving being here with my wife and our 5 kids who range from 3 to 16. And I'm running 2 different businesses, but I'm able to take this time because I've aligned my goals with my habits. I've set my big dreams and I'm making them real. I decided 7 years ago that I wanted to figure out why I wasn't achieving what I hoped to achieve and why I was looking in the mirror with sort of a disappointment and not seeing that sort of joyful and successful person that I'd always hoped to be, that I'd always envisioned, but I felt like I wasn't there. So I took drastic steps and drastic learning to make sure I got there. So I'm going to save you years worth of learning and mistakes on my part to become who you're meant to be, to live the life of your dreams now. That sound good? All right, come on, come join me. And don't worry, this isn't going to be hard. It just requires a system that works for you. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to talk at first about why goals fail and, start overcoming those. So, we're going to normalize some of the past failure and reveal why clarity and alignment matter more than willpower. So, willpower doesn't work. It's not willpower that's going to get you there. At the beginning of the year, we held this inspiring 8-week course that we called Thrive in 25. We're actually going to launch another one towards the end of September. And we did that to start the year off right by setting our big goals and to help people not just set resolutions that fail. And at the beginning of the course, I shared with the entrepreneurs, professionals, and parents, folks from all around the world who joined us, a statistic that I saw on New Year's Day on LinkedIn that said less than 9% of adults achieve at least one New Year's goal, meaning 91% of adults who set goals reach zero of them. I mean, it's just sad. So I wanted to learn why. And what I found in researching that was some of the reasons that goals don't stick is first, an unclear vision or external, second, external pressures or distractions that keep you from your goals. Third, an unrealistic pace. And lastly, a lack of identity alignment, which we're going to talk a lot about today, is that your goals aren't aligned with your true self. So, you may have a goal, but you don't really get there or have the burning desire, like Napoleon Hill said, to achieve that goal because it's not aligned with who you truly are. The unrealistic pace, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. You may set some huge goal, which is aligned with your true self, but you set the goal to get there in a year when it's only feasible to get there maybe in 3 years. And that's fine. We're going to work some on setting proper pace as well. And you do that through your habits. The external pressure distractions, I mean, those are big nowadays. I mean, the phone, negative news, drugs, alcohol, bad habit, lack of sleep. Those are some of the distractions or external pressures that keep us from our goals. So I want to introduce you to a quote that I absolutely love by Robert Brault, who said, we are kept from our goal, not by obstacles, but by a clear path to a lesser goal. We're always taking detours and getting off the highway to our dreams, not because it's too hard or too far, but because we're distracted by what's right in front of us. So if you look at the folks here, they were distracted by a sign that said great view over here when they were on their way to the mountaintop. So they got the great view, but they didn't get to the mountaintop. As where these folks didn't get distracted by the obstacle, by a clear path to a lesser goal, by that sign that says great view. Instead, they kept going and got to the mountaintop. So, does scrolling through news or social media get you to your goal faster? No, we all know that. It just fills your brain with negative inputs of others, wastes your time, and takes your mind off of what matters. Our addictions, I mentioned some of these dependencies that are part of why goals fail, but addictions to the phone, alcohol, drugs, negative news stream, they all keep us distracted from our goals. People say, hey, it's just, I'm just taking a few minutes to decompress. But the fact of the matter is that's time away from focusing on your true self, on achieving your goals. And not that you have to work hard, but that time may be getting good sleep, focusing on making a good meal or self-care, consuming positive content. But those and other distractions take our focus from what really matters. The distractions take us from what matters most, from our dreams and from our loved ones. Blaise Pascal, who was a famous French inventor and mathematician you may have heard of, Blaise Pascal said, Distraction is the only thing that consoles us from our miseries, and yet it is itself the greatest of our miseries. Meaning the distractions end up being our miseries because they keep us from our goals. We all have certain vices and bad habits that we want to overcome. Most of these turn into dependence and addiction, and we may not even recognize the dependence as a problem. And I mean, the phone is a big part of that. And, when we're distracted by these, they take us from our natural state. And when we're taken from our natural state, we don't operate at our best. When you operate at your best, you're putting good food and drinks into your body and feeding your mind only positive content. When we're not operating at our best, we numb ourselves with junk food, alcohol, drugs, mindless entertainment, negative news, and phone scrolling. I got my phone here. I try to avoid scrolling as much as possible, and I pretty much eliminated that from my day. And it used to be a big part of my day. But to get into a peak state and live the life of your dreams, you first have to address these distractions. So, even if you're not distracted by all the modern distractions of life, many of us are kept from our real goals by that clear path to lesser goals, meaning a smaller project or goal comes up that's easily achievable. So, we jump right into it, leaving our big goals and dreams behind. Someone knocks on your door or sends you an email and says, "Hey, can you help out with this?" And you say, "Yeah, of course, no problem." But that's distracted you from your big goal. You got to weed out more and stay focused. So you may experience some success, but it's not that real success that your true self requires of you. So the thing is about misaligned goals, meaning if they aren't aligned with your true self, is that they create confusion and burnout. So when you lack clarity, your nervous system can't trust the direction that you're going, and these misaligned goals lead to burnout. So are going to talk a lot today about aligning your goals with your true self and then creating the habits to get there. That's why meaning the misaligned goals leading to burnout. That's why so many seemingly successful people today are not happy. They may be achieving professional and work success, but they're just accomplishing small daily tasks. So inside they're happy because they aren't happy because they're not aligning their daily habits with their big goals. So every day they're just feeling burnt out working on these goals that aren't aligned with who they are. It creates confusion and leads to burnout. And your nervous system and your brain start to feel like they can't trust the direction you take. And that's where you start getting into self sabotage because you're supposed to go one way and instead you go another. And it creates anxiety and confusion. But I've found that clarity brings confidence, and confidence is contagious. So when you're really clear on your true self and your goals and your habits to get you there, you have immense confidence. And that confidence is contagious, not just for yourself, but others see it too. Now, lastly, another reason goals fail is that even if they are clear, that clear goal is not aligned with your true self. Gandhi said, "We shut our ears to that still small voice inside." But what he's saying is that, when you listen to your inner voice, when you open your ears to that still small voice inside, you know what to do. We need to just listen to ourselves. Listening, truly listening to our inner voice propels us into our future with clarity. So today we're going to talk about getting clear on our goals and our life's mission as well. And we all have a small voice within us that speak to us about wanting an amazing life. It nudges us to our personal and professional dreams. And it clamors for love, happiness, and success. And I want you to give a megaphone to that small voice within. This is your true self and your higher power directing you where to go. Goals that are not aligned with your true self create confusion and burnout. This leads to anxiety and depression. So when you're clear on your goals and they're aligned with your true self, you can live the life of your dreams. So we've covered why goals don't succeed or why goals fail. But now I want to get into a couple journal prompts that I want you to reflect on. And this is going to move us past that. And then we're going to start, getting into setting big goals and then aligning your habits with those. So, at the beginning of this initial session, I want you to think about a goal that you set in the past that didn't work out, that you didn't reach. And what do you think really got in the way? So again, pull out the pen and piece of paper or journal or type it on your phone or computer, but do not get lost in text or emails or social media. Just take a moment and I want you to journal. Uh, just think of a goal that you set in the past but didn't reach, and what do you think really got in the way? So take maybe 2 or 3 minutes to do that, and then we'll join back here and start going through that. All right, I'll give you just 2 3 minutes. All right, let's start coming back. All right. So, um, thanks for taking those couple minutes to reflect, and I appreciate that. Um, Anyone want to share? I see Maria, you have there thinking positively instead of negatively, and really, mindset is one of the biggest things that enables us to succeed and help us to hit our goals. I feel like we go through a lot of these methodologies, meaning I go through a lot of these methodologies. Um, in my book, I think Dan, is reiterating, lost my enthusiasm. The positive mindset is so incredibly important. I'm trying to think. There's a book I have to recommend about that. Give me 1 second to find it, but it's called Mindset, and the author is Carol Dweck, Dr. Carol Dweck, and it's tons of research on mindset. There's also a great book called the Big Leap by Gay Hendricks about overcoming negative thought and self sabotage. And I guess one additional book. I mean, have to. It's going to take me a second to think of the name of it. It refers to ants or annoying negative thoughts that continue to creep in, and working on your keeping that enthusiasm up and keeping a positive mindset is so incredibly important. So I guess, as having gone through that work all over the last few years and maintaining an incredibly positive mindset has helped me make this shift to staying focused and positive on my goals. And it's important to work on mindset, um, and not to get dissuaded by challenges. And at the last section of this workshop today, we are going to discuss overcoming challenges, and overcoming past roadblocks, or as Chaz said, losing confidence when not immediately successful. And most of the times we're not immediately successful. And while we're on this, I'll talk about it just for a minute, but then we can move on and we'll cover this topic more at the end of the course. But I'm reading a book by, I think, Jay Shetty. It's called Think Like a Monk, and I love this book because he gives an example of, they built this amazing like biosphere biodome in the desert, I think in Arizona, and they had all this plants and animals, flora and fauna, absolutely thriving in this created environment, without external factors influencing it and destroying the habitats. And it was all going really well, except in about a few months in, or a year in, a bunch of the trees started falling, and the scientists couldn't figure out why the trees kept falling. And what they realized after studying it more was that the trees, although they were growing well and seemed to have all the nutrients and everything they needed and all the sun and water, et cetera, to grow, they were falling. It was because their roots weren't strengthened by the wind. And that's how we grow. That's how we get stronger, is by the challenges, the resistance that teaches us and trains us, that wind that makes the trees grow, the gusts that push us down, the challenges that come at us. That's what makes us better. That's how we learn and grow stronger and get better. So if you don't immediately succeed, or you lose your enthusiasm, and you start getting into the negative repetitive thoughts, you got to learn to observe your thoughts, say, hey, I'm having that negative thought pattern again, and return to thinking positively. You are the observer of your thoughts. And, that little grounding exercise we started out with, that's a great way to do it, is just go into meditation of 10 to 30 minutes of observing those thoughts, resetting, say, there's another thought pattern. I'm going to call it out for what it is and return to my positive thinking. So yeah, today, we don't always see the same consistency. There was a lot of consistency towards mindset. So check out Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, as well as The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Both of those cover mindset. Maria, you have your hand raised. Let's go ahead and hit yours.
Oh, I just wanted to share just some of, what I'm realizing
Yeah.
gets in the way of my goal is a lot of, I think I allow people to, I'm a mom.
How many kids
So
do you have?
it's always, mom, can you do this? I have a son who's a firefighter. So when he goes out and fires, he needs someone to take care of his dog. And he's gotten used to asking me, and it's a real inconvenience to me, because I have to go from my house to his house, feed, walk, spend time with his dogs so that they stay socialized, and then and all of that as at the expense of my goal. I'm a real estate agent. I've got a real estate license. I'm very good at writing goals. I'm usually good at keeping. I'm good in some senses, but I find that I let people get in the way, and I've been really exploring why I do that, because I feel that deep down there's some self-sabotaging things going on. So, and then also, like, times where I have gotten really, really busy. I mean, there are mitigating factors. I mean, there's always that element where you're not, or you do what you can do, to what they call get a prospect through the sales funnel to a closed escrow. You're not
Yeah,
you're in control of what you're in control of, but there's that portion where you have no control. It's going to go the way it's going to go.
exactly.
So there's that, and I accept that. But then there's the element of doing a lot of work and having I guess when I really got busy was in 2020, where the market just got super hot and nobody could make sense of it.
Right.
So I was doing
Closing with no inspections and, waiving
well,
all.
people were overbidding
Yes.
sometimes $100,000 more than the house was worth.
Oh, yeah.
It was just crazy, and so every single one of my offers basically got outbid, even though we were overbidding by $50,000. So it was a lot of work that was costing me a lot of money, because I was a Zillow Premier agent, and they have a criteria, and you end up spending a lot of money. So I was making all this effort, being very consistent in it, and not seeing the fruit. And I feel like the frustration and just watching my bank account just kind of
Hmm.
sink lower and lower and lower. Um, I kind of had to think of another strategy, but I think I may have given up a little too soon, because I'm not one. I really believe that, on the other side of the door you're trying to push open, if you're consistent, great things will happen. And I don't think that I was consistent enough, because I was too worried about what it was costing me rather than what I would gain if I kept pushing. So,
Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah, I mean, and it's a delicate balance,
mhm,
between, continuing to throw good money at bad versus investing in ourselves. I mean, as an entrepreneur for the last 17 years, I've
mhm,
been through that, Maria, so I get it. I mean, I have done that in my clean energy business. And also experienced that here in, as now I'm an author and a coach as well. Doing that in addition, we sort of question, what is the right balance of, spending on being able to reach people
mhm,
versus y- the risk and reward of that time and effort. But let's take a couple of those things first. Learning to say no is so powerful, and we will mention it a little bit later in the workshop today. You can't just be on call for your son who's a firefighter to go immediately drop what you're
exactly.
doing, and
Yeah.
you need to help him create a plan for that that doesn't involve you dropping what you're doing. I mean, you have clients, and even if you didn't have an immediate client action that you needed to take to
Mhm.
get you towards a closing or a new sale or a new prospect,
Yeah.
um, you know, you at least have, as you heard me talk about, anytime that you're doing something else that's not what you're supposed to be doing, to help make you better or directly related to achieving your goal,
Mhm.
you're spending time, taking away from realizing your true self and your true vision for yourself. So, obviously
Exactly.
he's grown because he's a fireman.
Mhm.
You've given him your your time and effort. It's now time for him to be a big boy and figure it
Exactly. And
out.
I have found that in setting boundaries, because he's not the only one, it's I'm always the go-to aunt, the go-to sister, the go-to friend, the go-to cousin. I'm always the one everyone goes to. And like I told myself, it there's got to be another reason other than I'm kind.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to start setting boundaries here, because they're doing it at the expense of my life, and I'm not a utility person. I mean, I have a life of my own, goals of my own, interests of my own, things that are important to me that people need to respect and honor just as much as I honor them. And I made a rule for myself that if I'm not receiving what I'm giving, then it's probably time to walk away, because I'm tired of one-sided relationships.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I'm calling this my time. And I've told everybody I'm going to be very selfish with it. So you're going to see a different side of me. If you cross that boundary, you're going to see a side of me that you're not going to like. And oh well, but because it's my
Well, and
time.
you'll find that you're actually going to end up being able to give more later because you're going to create your life in the way that you want to create it. So you're going to end up being far more effective once you get a hold of your time and you stop giving. You'll find that you end up with more time available ultimately, because you've been so focused on your goals. Meaning, once you hit your goals and you create those habits and those routines, you'll find that you get, hey, you know what? I have some time for you now. Let me help you.
Yeah,
But
and
you
you know, and
can't be at everyone's beck and call
it
because
was it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, because you're dedicated. You've made that decision internally that you are ready to hit your goals and start living the life of your dreams. And every time you're taking away from that, you're just pushing it off further and further.
I mean, it came because I had to figure out why I was becoming an angry person. I just felt angry all the time. And, and just really started being very aware of what I felt when I felt it and why I felt it. And that's what it boiled down to, is that it's like everybody's impeding me. I'm walking in a direction, or I start building momentum in my own life, start doing the things that I want to do. And all of us, I mean, it never fails. It's like a whole slew of people will start demanding from me. It's almost like they don't want me to succeed. They need me there for them.
Yeah. Well,
And
everyone will take every ounce of energy you
mhm,
have. I mean, if it's not that person, it'll be someone else. I mean,
mhm,
Dan said that he struggles with being angry as well. Um, or he can relate to being angry all the time. I mean, a lot of us are stuck in that cycle of, of pain and anger, and we got to break that cycle.
mhm,
I mean, I got to admit, I've been working so hard on this, as I said, for 7 years. I've been working on this path for personal development, and now I want to share that and help inspire other people and save them some
mhm,
time. But yeah, I felt like when I was distracted a lot, and even today with 5 kids from 3 to 16, and everyone's whining and coming at me and needing me to do
mhm,
all these things, it's both giving the that you're referring to, Maria,
mhm.
but it's also like Dan said, it gets very overwhelming, and you want to be angry because you're not doing what you want to be doing. Instead, you're helping
Yeah.
everyone else
Yeah,
do what they
and I
they
have
need to
found,
do.
yeah, it's almost like I had to get used to, like I didn't know what to do with the free time. That's how entrenched I was in making sure everyone else was okay at the expense of myself. It's like I had to learn to see myself, to be visible to myself, and to realize that, I'm everybody's so important to me, but I've never been important to myself, and now I'm important to myself. And but it took some, it took a journey to get there. And now that I have set boundaries, I have watched people's reactions, and it's like I'm not useful to them anymore. And that's okay, because I figured, um
Well, they'll find someone else's time
yeah,
they'll
exactly,
suck someone else's energy away. But
exactly.
one thing I want to say about that extra time is that
Hmm.
extra time can be spent,
Hmm.
any free time you have
Hmm.
should be spent, either, in mindful, meditation or journaling on your goals and your strategic plan and where you want to
Hmm.
go, or consuming positive content, listening to
Hmm.
those books I recommended, or, I think
Hmm.
either Maria or LaShonda recommended The Four Agreements, another great book.
Yeah.
Working on making yourself better. There's
Hmm.
a great quote. I don't know if I reference it in this course. I think I do, but it says, your input determines your outlook determines your output, and your output determines your future. It's a quote by Zig
Hmm.
Ziglar. And the point in that is every single thing that you put in your brain and even your
Hmm.
body, but everything that you consume, people say, oh, watching this negative show or listening to this
Hmm.
negative music, isn't, it's just entertainment. My 15-year-old son and I have this debate all the time because,
Hmm.
this is something I teach. And it, it- that input you do consume and you do think about it later, it does have an effect on you, and your input determines your outlook, and your outlook determines your output. So what you're putting in your brain ends up being what you put back out in the world. So, Dan, if you don't want to be angry, consume massive amounts of positive content, download Audible or watch inspiring videos on YouTube. Like I watch, Les Brown or Zig Ziglar or Norman Vincent Peale, or I watch old MLK speeches, or someone who inspires you. And consume that positive content, read those or listen to those positive books, and you will
Mhm.
find that the more you put in with any free time, if you're in the car,
Mhm.
instead of just listening to nonsense, listen to positive content that
Mhm.
inspires you to be the best person you can
You
be.
know what I found really helpful? Writing. Like
Yeah.
I call it my it's my junk notebook. It's like everything, any fear, any anxiety, anything that's negative, whatever's there. Yeah. I even have one for anger,
I,
and I call it my angry book, and I just
here, I got
and
those here. I have
yeah.
three. I have three different journals on my desk right here, Marie.
Honestly, because I've learned that once I get it, what's in me out on paper, it's no longer in me. Now it's on
Yep.
paper. And I think more clearly. I'm not angry anymore. I may be still a little frustrated because people still try to demand from me. And it triggers something on the inside of me because what I hear is not, hey, can you help me? What I hear is, hey, let me interrupt your life. That's what I hear now. And I feel a little frustrated about that because I've been frustrated for so long. But I write
Well,
about it, and I find that the more I do that, the more I let out, the better I feel, and the more I'm just more clear-headed. I'm much more calm. I sleep better, and I love to reflect. I mean, I'm always thinking about what I think about, and I'm just always trying to find there's a lesson to learn in everything, for me. And I'm always trying to find what it is I can learn from whatever I'm going through, whether it's good, bad, ugly, whatever. There's always something to learn. So
yeah, and once you start, sorry to interrupt, but I mean, once you start on this journey um, of self-discovery and self-improvement and personal development, you get better and better at it. I mean, you get quicker at recognizing those negative thoughts,
Mhm.
writing them down or observing them, taking the corrective action, being positive,
Mhm.
consuming more positive content to get you there. So, um, I appreciate you sharing. We got to move on so we stick to
Sure.
schedule for moving to, part two, which is where we start getting into aligning your goals with your true self. And this is really powerful, and this is the way that's going to get you there. Later we'll talk about specifically setting habits and overcoming challenges, but we're going to shift from externally imposed goals to deeply personal, soul-led vision for your life and building an emotional connection to your future self. So we're going to align your goals with your true self. uh, it's good to have good habits, but you want to know where they're getting you. So, you can say you have good habits, but, are you aligning your goals with your habits? Are you aligned, meaning are your habits, your daily activities, are they aligned with your goals, your dreams, and your true self? You need to know where you're headed. You need to set goals and you need to make them big. So not only do you need to have a direction or vision for your life, you need to have a big, bold vision for your life. So we're going to start by going big, meaning where do you want to be in 10 years or 20 years? And don't worry where you are right now. It doesn't really matter if you're 30 or 50 or 70. I know this guy who's the founder of Strategic Coach, Dan Sullivan. At 75 years old, he set his 25-year plan to go even bigger. And he'll probably, see that through to when he's 100, because that's what excites him. So there's no end to what you can achieve at any age and at any point in your life. But you have to think bigger. And I'll explain why. With 5 kids and running 17-year-old business, was it wise for me to start a new direction and start, becoming an author, an inspirational speaker? I don't know if it is or not. Only time will tell. But I'm excited by it, as you can see. And I love every minute of, communicating with you today and inspiring you to achieve your dreams. I can see clearly now for the next 10 years and beyond. So, what is your big, hairy, audacious goal? What is your impossible goal? What seems outrageous to others, but in your heart is what you need to do. That's your North Star. That's the direction you need to head. Who do you want to be in 10 years? We're going to work backwards from 10 years out and then get down to 3 years and then to this year, this quarter, and this month. And then to the daily habits that bring all those goals to life. They all link, they're all connected. So I want to ask you a question in thinking about, where we want to go in the future. Is Are you the same person that you were 10 years ago? I mean, just hearing some of the things that Maria was saying, probably not. But yet people set goals and plans as though we'll be ourselves, but just a little bit older. So we know that's not the case, that we're not the same person we were 10 years ago. But yet when we set a goal 10 years from now, a lot of times it's like, oh, I'll be me, but a little bit older. So I'm going to play it safe and make a goal that like I can get to in 10 years. There's this concept called perspection. Perspection is the ability to mentally represent and evaluate possible futures. It's a fundamental psychological skill that includes planning, prediction, and imagining future scenarios. So when we envision future scenarios, generally, we limit ourselves to what we know now. But yet, what I've found is there are no limits. Our goal in this workshop is to open our minds to think without limits. So for years, I was working on the hamster wheel. When I was just 27, I was in my second year of law school, and I uh, I was standing in the kitchen one night. It was right before exams at the end of the second year, and my left leg felt a little warm, and I looked down, thinking maybe the dog just peed here, maybe there was hot water pipe or something under the ground, and I touched it with my hand, but it wasn't warm. And that night, I climbed into bed and my legs started twitching every couple seconds. Within 2 days, I couldn't lift my left foot, and I lost the ability to hold a pen in my right hand or type, which is kind of essential for law school exams. And I'm absolutely despondent, and my head is spinning and my body's deteriorating. I had just been elected class president and editor in chief of Law Journal. I'm thinking, like, am I about to die? Now, MRIs show that I have lesions in my brain and my spinal cord. This was the onset of multiple sclerosis. And I was relieved when my dad, who's a doctor, said I wasn't going to die right now, but that this could get worse. I could end up in a wheelchair. And I'm thinking, worse? How is being all gimpy and not being able to even write going to get any worse? Now, over the next 3 years, when I overdid it as a young lawyer, I had two subsequent MS flare-ups where I lost vision in each of my eyes due to lesions of my optic nerves. Our body is miraculous, though, and heals itself when we care for it properly. And although I've now gone, I've got some residual nerve damage in my hand, but thank God I've now gone almost 18 years without another flare up. But the lesson is simple. You have to listen to your inner voice when it tells you to slow down, just like you have to listen when it tells you to get up and run into your future. So we're talking about listening to your inner voice, but I wasn't always listening to that inner voice. Through my early career, I was just running in circles, hoping for things to get better. For years, I saw sad eyes looking at me in the mirror, wondering why I hadn't hit my potential. And I knew I wasn't living as my true self. 2 decades go by where I wasn't listening to my inner voice. And then I mentioned 7 years ago. Well, it was the summer of 2018. And I had a complete awakening. I was actually on vacation up here with my family in Vermont then 7 years ago. And I decided then that I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Some of those things everyone expressed earlier in the chat, being angry, being overwhelmed, lacking enthusiasm. I decided to start working and improving myself and start listening and growing again. This 7-year journey has been extraordinary and brought me to a place of deep personal alignment, both with my true self and my higher power, and allowed me to realize personal, professional, and spiritual growth. And once I saw the light in the mirror, that I was the light in the mirror, it dawned on me. I am meant to inspire others. That's what my true self is meant to do. That's what that still small voice had been telling me for all those years. That's why I saw sad eyes in the mirror for all those years, because living as a lawyer and then energy entrepreneur isn't living as my true self. I'm not making enough impact every day. Writing books and inspiring you in workshops like this or some of the courses I teach, that's my true calling. What is your true calling? From the podium or in a course like this, I get to use my voice to help others find their true voice. That's why I'm talking to you today, to inspire you to live the life of your dreams, to listen to your inner voice and to set big goals. Are you listening to that still small voice inside you? What is it telling you? In the immortal words of Nelson Mandela, who lived fully through struggle and triumph, There is no there is no passion in playing small, in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. I want you to live the life of your dreams, which you can do today by living as your true self and setting big goals with a plan to achieve them. And we're going to give you that plan. So how can you do that? First, listen to your inner voice. Second, write down what you hear so you can set big goals. And third, implement daily habits that help you live as your true self and achieve your goals. So as your feet hit the floor tomorrow morning, I want you to walk into the bathroom, step in front of that mirror, lock eyes with yourself, and say, I love you. And then go spread that light out into the world. The world needs your light to shine brightly now more than ever. The world needs you to be at your best, and we need you now. So as you wake with intention, put down the phone, stop scrolling, and just listen to that still small voice inside. What is it telling you? What do you need to do to live as your true self? You can't live the extraordinary life of your dreams by playing small, by just going through the motions. Don't go through the motions at work. Make your motions work. Setting big goals and daily habits is the beginning of a glorious life. Now, it started raining here. Give me a moment. All right. Thanks for your patience there. That's one of the, luckily there's a big overhang here, but one of the risks of doing a course while outside on vacation. So let's see. What I want to encourage you to do is to live that extraordinary life of your dreams. And you can't do it by playing small, by just going through the motions. You got to set big goals and daily habits, which are the beginning of a glorious life, your true life, the life you're meant to live, not the one that keeps you stuck. So one of the most famous architects of last century was Daniel Burnham, and he's known for a great quote that says, make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood and probably will not themselves be realized. Make big plans, aim high in hope and work. That's why we're here, to make big plans, to set big goals, and then create a clear plan to achieve them. And then you follow that up with the habits that'll make your future come true. So that's how we're going to thrive in 25. Be bold and be specific. So you see, big plans are actually easier to achieve because it limits the number of pathways to get there. Before that, I just want to say, Maria, I saw your message in the chat. We will see you again sometime. Feel free to join anytime. We will, of course, send you the recording. We do send these out as well as other information like our habit tracker that you're going to learn about later. And feel free to join for a later course. But thank you for sharing, and good luck on your 1 o'clock call or 10 a.m. call.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for joining.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Anyway, as I was saying about setting big goals is, it's clear, it's easier to set big goals because you can create a pathway to get there. So if you set a smaller goal, there are a lot of different ways to get there. But if you set a big goal, there's usually only 1 or 2 ways to get there. So if you want to be the best at something, there are only a few direct actions you can take that will get you there. And I'll use an example. My oldest son, who's 16, loves snowboarding. And if he wants to be a better snowboarder, there are tons of things he can do to practice snowboarding and get a little bit better. But, and not that this is what he's doing, but I'm using this as an example. If he decides he wants to be in the Olympics, there are only 1 or 2 paths to get there. So by being bold and specific, he's focused his decisions and narrowed the pathways to get there. There are only 1 or 2 elite training academies or coaches in the world that can make him, help him on his path to becoming an Olympic snowboarder. He would have to train like an Olympian. He would have to eat and have a regimen like an Olympian. So by increasing the goal and limiting the scope, he can create a pathway to get to greater success. And the same goes for any type of work. Maria, I'm just using her because she was on and she mentioned being a real estate agent. If she decides she wants to be the best real estate agent in her region, there are only a couple of direct pathways to get there. Instead of just selling more or doing a little bit better, she can actually, set a big goal and then create a clear pathway to get there. So the bigger the goal, the easier it is to get there, actually. So, author of Good to Great, Jim Collins, he said, if you have more than 3 priorities, you have none. So we're going to work on setting no more than 3 priorities. Everyone is so scattered trying to do everything well that we give everything only our partial attention. So if you want to thrive in 2025 and achieve big goals, you have to limit your focus and say no to a lot more. So I'm going to share my method for setting big goals and then aligning them with quarterly and monthly goals. We can then help you refine your goals and set daily habits that'll make realizing your goals inevitable. So at the beginning of each year, I set my big goals for the year, and then I list the quarterly goals that I can do in the next 90 days to get me closer to those annual goals. Then I list the monthly goals that will help me achieve those quarterly goals, and then I update that every single month. And that's living in true alignment. And every single month, I'm visiting my big long-term vision for myself, my annual goals, my quarterly goals, and I'm updating those. So it's true alignment. It's how I bring my goals to life. And I then post those at my desk and on the mirror in my bathrooms. And that way, I'm able to see and be reminded every day what I'm working on. And like you guys talked about distraction or letting anger or other things come in, it's easier to stay focused when you're reminded daily about where it is you're trying to get to and your immediate action that you're taking this month in order to get you there. And you can schedule time to get there. It's true alignment. And next, we'll be talking about making your daily habits align with those big goals. So it may not be direct action for those big goals, but at least it's getting you to who you're meant to be, to your true self. And you got to strip away a lot more in order to get there. In the Tao Te Ching, it says, in the pursuit of knowledge, every day something is added. In the pursuit of the Tao, every day something is taken away. So in pursuit of your goals, don't add more. Take more away. Take more out of your life. Those things we were talking about that you need to say no to. Take more out of your life that keeps you from your big goals and living the life of your dreams. So make your goals big and simple and take away all the nonsense that wastes your day. Get rid of all the distractions and focus in on your goals. You want to find the pathway and then strip away all else. So if you do that, you're going to be able to climb higher than you ever have before because your next summit's waiting, but it's your time to climb. So you got to cut out all the nonsense and stay focused on those goals. So now, in order to start doing that, and before we get into more immediate goal setting, I want to get into leading you on imagining your life, your future self, 10 years from now. I want you to live fully alive, successful, and peaceful. So today, I want you to take out your journal again and journal. Take a few minutes to think. We're actually, before you even journal, I want you to take a few minutes and just think. Close your eyes and meditate. If closing your eyes is not comfortable, then just bring your gaze down low. Do some of the breathing I was talking about before. And imagine on the other side of the Zoom is yourself 10 years in the future. I want you to meet your future self. I've done this a number of times. I've written a letter from myself in 10 years, myself in 3 years. We will give you those as exercises to do. But for now, I want you to just take, it says 5 minutes. Why don't you take maybe 3-4 minutes and do that? And then we're going to work on a little journal prompt related to that. So take a few quiet moments. Give this time to yourself. Imagine meeting yourself from 10 years. How do they appear? What are they wearing? How do they hold themselves or carry themselves? You 10 years from now, what is your true self? How do they spend their time? What wisdom do they have to share with you? you might ask, that future self some questions. So take a few minutes. We'll maybe give you 4 to 5 minutes to just meet your future self. And then you can journal what you saw. All right, let's start bringing it back. I hope you enjoyed meeting your future self. Great. So we're going to go ahead and get going back in here, and I want you to bring you back. Hopefully, you enjoyed that exercise. I found a great deal from it, I've actually started creating my life based on my visualization of my future self, and then creating those goals that are in line with my future self. So hopefully this was helpful. I now want to switch to a journal prompt related to that. If you want to take just a few minutes, if you haven't done that yet, and I want you to journal, this future self you met. What did your future self show you? What have they accomplished? How do they seem different? What is he or she proud of? Just think a little bit about what they showed you. What did you see when you met your future self? And then I want you to create 3 goals that you can make. Say, call it, 3 long-term goals that align with your future self. What are 3 long-term goals? Call it 3 3-year goals. If you want to make it 3-year goals, 3 3-year goals that align with your future self. Remember what Jim Collins said: if you have more than 3 priorities, you have none. So no more than 3 goals that align with your future self. Take just another couple minutes to do that, and then we'll start moving into setting the habits that will reinforce who you are and hitting those big goals. So real quick, what did your future self show you? And what are 3 goals that align with your future self? Call it 3 3-year goals. And we'll just give you, maybe 3 minutes to do that. All right. You can always come back to these later. I know this is a really deep, meaningful exercise. I do encourage you to do it later. I also encourage you to write a letter to yourself from your future self. Give me just a moment to switch my microphone. There we go. All right. So, yeah, I definitely want you to take some time and work on these later as well. You might want to write a letter to yourself from your future self 3 years from now, or even 10 years from now. I found that to be a deeply meaningful exercise. And I actually still have letter on my desk at home that I wrote to myself. I'm reminded of it and go back and read it regularly. So, that version of you, your future self that you just met, confident, calm, clear, they're not far away. but they live on the other side of clarity and aligned habits. And the truth is, you don't think your way into becoming your future self. You have to experience your way into it, which is exactly why we created the Thrive in 25 course, which is an 8-week immersive course. And in that experience, it's designed to help reconnect with your truth and rewire how you show up in the world. So we'll come back to that a little bit later. But for now, just know it's real and your future self is waiting for you. So now we want to talk about building the habits that reinforce who you are, that you can go this way. I mean, not only do you come up with this big vision for yourself, but how do you start becoming and living as your true self? We want to explain how these aligned habits shape your identity over time. So when I began the regular practice of meditating and journaling 7 years ago, it felt a little bit difficult and awkward at first. And, I'm not sure why it felt awkward. I guess I was worried my wife, or kids might walk in and see me crazy sitting there in the lotus position, eyes closed. Whether that's awkward for them or me, I'm not sure, but it felt a little awkward at first, but you know what? I stuck with it and it became natural and heartfelt and even habitual. And now it's part of my daily life. The point in it is habits, both good and bad, are really hard to break. And heaven knows I've had my bad habits, like smoking, or using weed or staying up too late. But I've broken all those. And it's a lot easier to break bad habits when you have good habits and positive reinforcement to break them. So talking about replacing, bad habits with good habits. The Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, said chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. In 2018, I was given a habit roadmap and I started tracking my habits. And there's a sign on my desk. Usually I'm doing these in my office at home, these workshops. But behind my desk, there's a quote that says, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit." As you set your big goals, you want to keep your focus by creating positive habits and routines. You want to awake with intention each day by setting your daily big three priorities. You want to start each day by having three big priorities that you had journaled the night before to clearly set your intention. And we'll go into that a little bit later in the workshop. But this way, when your feet hit the floor, you know exactly which way to go. It's important to get your bearings and start your day with positive routines before you look at the phone. You'll hear me say it over and over. Don't look at the phone for the first hour you're awake and for the last hour before you go to sleep. You want to connect with yourself before you connect with everyone else, meaning for that first hour of the day. Remember, excellence is a habit. Again, the Aristotle quote is, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit." By retraining your brain to live in a more positive, productive, and happy life, you're more easily able to achieve your goals. So even if you've done the same negative routine for decades, your brain can be reprogrammed through deliberate practice. Remember, we are what we repeatedly do. So if you want to see and do things differently, then set new habits and do them repeatedly. It doesn't happen overnight, but the more you practice, you can retrain your brain for love, happiness, and success. Positive habits are the key to making your dreams and your goals real. To get into a routine of positive habits and start framing up and building a strong future, it's worthwhile to track effective habits. We're now getting into habits and practices that make it easier to transform into the person you're meant to be. There's a quote, Peter Drucker said, "You can't improve what you don't measure." So you want to track your habits to make them come to life. You measure and track that which you want to improve. So do you want to wait for the future to happen? No, you want to start it now. You want to start by being that person you're meant to be now. So if you want to do that, it helps to track your progress. So you have to, design a house. You have to get all the materials to build it. And then your annual, quarterly, and monthly goals that we just talked about are the designs, the habits of the materials. And then each day you build with those materials, you build with those habits towards becoming your future self. And what you'll find is by the end of the year, your house will be built, your goals will be achieved. So when you listen to your true self, you're able to see your future self, meaning you just envisioned your future self. You do what that person does, but you do it now. You don't wait to get there. To race towards your future, it's much easier to create and measure the habits that bring you closer to the person you want to be. Look, everyone struggles with improving themselves and being who they want to be, but it doesn't have to be profound or difficult. Make it simple. So we're going to share with you, if you don't have it already, whether you've downloaded it from our website or you'll see it in the follow-up email when we send you this recording, um, the habitually inspired habit tracker, which we created as a simple way of tracking up to 10 daily habits. The chart's broken out by week, and you just write the habits you want to work on, practice regularly, improve, that will help your personal, professional, and spiritual goals. Those things that improve your body, your mind, and your spirit. Maybe you want to track progress on a work goal or a fitness goal. Look, I lost over 30 pounds over the last couple of years just from tracking my intermittent fasting. For now, let's just focus on what you want to improve and start tracking it. Try to make those habits that will help you achieve your big three goals. So, if you have a, fitness goal or a work goal or, a spiritual practice goal or a relationship goal, it doesn't necessarily have to be the habits that totally align with that day by day, but it helps a lot if you align your habits with your goals, or at least create habits that help you to be the type of person that would achieve those goals. The habit tracker is a great way to do that on paper or digitally. But like I just said a few minutes ago, remember, if you're doing this on your phone or computer, don't use the phone or the computer for the first hour you're awake, except if you're just turning off an alarm, maybe playing some positive music, or maybe listening to a book or a video while you work out or meditate that will inspire you to be your best self. You may get stuck on an app if you use it to track your habits, and then you'll switch to, checking texts or emails. Don't do it. No phone for the first hour. Promise me? Okay. Orienting your day properly is essential to living the life of joy and happiness. So don't check email, social media, communicate with anyone other than yourself for the first hour you're awake. That's why I get up at 5 a.m. I had to create that time with, my wife and 5 kids. I had to create extra time so I have at least an hour to 2 to do what I need to do, to care for myself, to focus in on my future self, and to take care of my top priorities. Now, I've been tracking daily habits now for over 5 years using, habit tracker. And remember, we are what we repeatedly do. It may change slightly from quarter to quarter based on what I'm working on or trying to improve, but many of those habits have been the same for the last 5 years. So I'll go through what I'm currently tracking, but they change a little bit from now and then. Like, I used to get up from, I'd have wake at 5, meditate 5, and then 5:30 or so and journal, and then work on my top priority. But while I was writing my book, Light in the Mirror, I switched to, write from 5:30 to 7. I did that as my first activity of the day when there are no disruptions and my brain is focused on that and in the right state. That habit helped me hit the goal of writing my book in just 6 months because I did it every day and I tracked it. I made the commitment to myself and I hit my goal. So here are the habits I'm currently tracking each day. Um, Sleep by 10, wake by 5, uh, meditate, journal, 1 hour of flow on my top priority, read a spiritual book, read the Tao Te Ching. The reason I have those is because I'm writing a book called Ride the Light. That's, more about aligning with your spirit. And so I'm doing that learning and that research. I also have on there 30 to 60 minutes of quality content per day, exercise or yoga, and PM journal, meaning journal my wins for the day, how I want to show up the next day, and my big three. So before sleep, I just do a quick journal of my wins for the day, how I want to show up tomorrow, and my big three priorities for the next day. That keeps me focused and aligned. And like I said, it as soon as my feet hit the floor, I know what I'm doing that day because I said it the night before. Now, is all this, that I just shared with you, is it perfect? No. Do I get to every single habit every day? Sadly, no. Life gets in the way. I may miss one or two or more of the habits, but on the days when I'm at my best, I hit them all. And those days become far more frequent the longer I track my habits. I make time for them. I make sure I do these like my life depended on it. And you know what? My future life does depend on it. I can't reach my goals if I'm not doing these habits. That's why goals fail. We mentioned it earlier. People set these goals and then they don't implement the means to get there. Your habits are your means to get to your future. And so as I go along, I have more days at my best and I hit them all more often because that which is being measured is actually improving. So look, you can track what works for you. Look at your goals that you're setting. See what you need to do to hit those goals and make those areas your daily habits. I think we're going to share with you. We've just created a new goal setting worksheet that lays out, setting the big long-term vision for yourself, then setting, your 3-year goals, annual goals, quarterly and monthly goals. And then you align that with your habit tracker. And really you want to align those with, what does that person you dream of being do each day? Don't wait, do those now. You journaled about the vision of yourself in 10 years. What does your future self do each day that you aren't doing now? Do those. Do those every day and track them like your life depended on it because that future self does depend on it. Pick those things and be that person now. By practicing each day, you'll quickly become that person. My life is improving each day because I'm tracking that which matters most to me and holding myself accountable by tracking it. And look, that 10-year vision you set for yourself, if you start being that person now and tracking it regularly, it's not going to take you 10 years. You're going to be there much faster. Like 4 years ago, I envisioned my future self and I wrote a letter to myself from my future self. I then took those actions that my future self took. I started dressing like that person I had envisioned. It was me, but different. It was the me I wanted to become and started transforming into that person I wanted to become. I started tracking the habits that my future self would do, and I did them. And I started to become that person. Now, did I reach him fully yet? No, not yet. But my vision for my future self continues to grow, and new habits will emerge as I evolve. So, who do you want to become? Are you fired up to become that person? Jim Rohn said, motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. We're here to thrive this year, to set big goals. But this year, we're going to accomplish those goals because we're going to put habits in place that make achieving those goals inevitable. So now I want you to work on some actual habit mapping. So you met that future version of yourself, whether that's in 10 years or in 3 years. What are 5 to 10 habits that will help you become your future self? What are 5 to 10 habits that will help you become your future self? And we've told you about the habit tracker. We will make that available to you after the workshop as well. You'll see that in an email. So as with you're getting used to these journal prompts and getting good at it. Take 2 to 3 minutes to journal, maybe 3-4 minutes uh, to journal what are 5 to 10 habits that will help you become your future self. And let's say, you met your future self 10 years. What are 5 to 10 habits that'll help you become your future self in 3 years? 3 years is just long enough that it's reachable, but you want to put these in place that'll help you get there. All right, let's start to come back. Hopefully that was helpful. I do want you to use the habit tracker once you get that, which you'll see in an email after the course here. Let's start coming back. And welcome. Hopefully that was helpful. Happy to take any questions if anyone has them. Otherwise, we'll start talking about overcoming setbacks and building resilience. But uh, any questions on habit setting? Obviously, I want you to work on your habit tracker after the course as well, which again you'll see via email. Anyone have any questions they want or any feedback you want to get on setting your goals or setting your habits to help match or align with your goals? All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to not aligning our habits, but overcoming roadblocks. And it's a big problem. And I think, we mentioned it earlier in the course. We're talking about some of those habits that we wish we could, that we had set and didn't reach, or some of those things that could change our life and some of the obstacles that we've had to confront or dealt with. And we want to reinforce that, that long-term commitment. And I'm glad you enjoyed meeting your future self, Dan. It's been incredibly valuable for me, and you can start living as your future self now. There's a great book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, Hardy, called "Be Your Future Self Now," which discusses living your life from your future self and setting your intention according to your future. And when you set aligned goals and build the habits to match, you're not just chasing results, you're becoming someone new. You're becoming your true self, who you are meant to be. In April of 2022, we launched a new off-grid energy company. Apart from doing this, I run a clean energy company called Blue Sky Power, and we launched a new company called OhmGrid in direct response to the new role home took on after COVID. And it was to, using solar and battery storage and generators to take people off grid. And we were burning through cash, and it was clear when my accountant told me, that it wasn't going to work out in July, that we weren't going to make it. We weren't getting the investment we hoped to get in time. And I dumped a ton of time and money, effort into it. And we had hired up and brought in a great team to help build this. And our team was excited and prepared, but by October of 2022, we had dwindling investor interest, and I had to make the heartbreaking decision to let go of our team. And I took some time that October day when I had to let folks go, and I went on a long hike in the woods, further than I've ever gone before. And the trail stopped, and I kept going further deeper into the woods because I was trying to get to the other side of the lake. And thorn bushes started pulling at my pants, and I'm like, I got to turn around. I got to figure this out. But there's no way to get across the lake, and I thought there was. But I looked over to my right, and I saw a creek. And I looked at it for a minute, and I knew that the creek went back to the lake. So I took my shoes off, I put my feet in the cold, shallow, rippling water, and I walked through the creek. And as I did that, I thought to myself, we always find a way through. I'd just gone through a really challenging time. I took a risk. I started this new business. I dumped $1 million into it and I lost it. And I had to let people I deeply cared about go from their jobs. And we all were excited about this vision, and it didn't work out. But when you take a risk and you listen to your inner voice and you pursue a path, it's not about whether you get to the end goal. There will always be twists and turns. It's not about the destination, but about who you become in the process. When you set big, audacious goals, even if you fall short, you end up much further ahead than you were before. For me, that was heartbreaking, but I learned a ton more by starting something and taking a risk, meaning starting a new business. I hadn't started a new business in 15 years. I learned far more by doing that than if I just stayed tight in my space of doing my traditional business. So there will always be twists and turns. It's about who you become in the process. So when you set a big long-term goal, even if you fall short, You end up much further ahead than you were before you had taken a risk and started that big goal. Tracking your habits isn't a test. You're not competing with anyone else. You're keeping track so that you can improve. Some weeks won't be as strong as others. Some weeks you'll forget to track your habits. Yet, if you want to live in bliss, then keep tracking and keep improving. Now, a few weeks ago, I had the best week I had had in tracking my habits for over 5 years, almost a perfect score. I felt great and was focused, living inspired and on point. My habits were aligned with my goals. And then the following week, it was much lower and dropped off because I stayed up late packing my son for an overnight trip to DC with school. And we had to meet the bus at the school next morning at 6 a.m. So I didn't stick to my meditating and writing, etc. And following day was my 7-year-old's birthday. And then the next night, my father-in-law came for a program at the kids' school. And my habits were way off. And my weekly score was low. Life got in the way. But the next week, I got back to my routine and did those habits that helped get me back to the state of balance and bliss. You aren't always going to feel that balance. Either busy life takes us from our healthy habits like sleep, meditation, journaling, or exercise, or something happens that gets in your mind. Those negative recurring thoughts take over again. It's not always perfect, but the more you work at it and trust your future self as your guide, the more you stick to your healthy habits and come back to your true self, no matter how busy you are and what negatively impacts your life. You're never too busy or too distracted to take 2 seconds to look yourself in the mirror and say, I love you. You're never too tired to put your hand on your heart and say, I love you as you drift off to blissful sleep. You got to keep going, even when you don't feel it. In fact, when you don't feel it is the perfect time to reset. When your computer isn't working properly, you reboot. You just reboot. When that dreaded colored spinning wheel of death on the computer goes, and you know that nothing's going to work, you press Control Alt Delete or you force a restart. When things aren't going well and you're off your game, reboot yourself. Go back. Look at your habit tracker and begin again. Look at your big goals. Look at your habit tracker. That's your reboot. This brings you back to your true self. This brings you back to accelerating towards your big goals. So once you head down this path and see that the light it brings you, you can't unsee it. You can't unsee the light in the mirror and all around you. Even when you have bad days, those days get shorter and less frequent. You can change the trajectory more quickly. Your habits keep you going and help you get back to who you're meant to be. When a challenge, a tragedy, or even just a bad day knocks you off, get back to tracking your habits and find your alignment with yourself again. Thank goodness for these habits. It gets me back every time. My wife ruptured her Achilles dancing at a kid's party Memorial Day weekend, and she was out, and she ended up having to get surgery 2 weeks later, and she was basically bedridden for about 6 weeks straight. And right at the end of school, right as camps and stuff were starting, and it was me taking care of her and our 5 kids and doing all that by myself, and I was totally overwhelmed. But thank goodness for my habits, my habit tracker, and my goals. As I was so out of sorts doing all this stuff and caring for all these people, I was able to recenter myself and get back to my habits. So as she was starting to get better, I was able to get back to my habits and know exactly where to go, get back aligned to my goals. Um, I want you to take a little bit of reflection now that we've talked about overcoming obstacles and roadblocks and getting refocused and staying focused and getting rid of the negative thoughts and not letting them take over. We want to activate a complete identity shift. And I guess I want to know first, and then we'll get to closing after this. And then we can answer some questions. I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any feedback. But I want to know what's one, you can put this in the chat if you don't want, you don't need to take time to journal it. Just what's one insight from today that you're going to take with you? What's one insight from today that you're taking with you to start living as your true self? And you can think about that for a minute. You can put it in the chat. So as you're thinking about that? Meaning, what's one insight you're taking with you today to live as your true self? I guess I want to start going to closing and getting you to the point that you're ready to take that action. Because now it's time to put on your spacesuit and climb into the shuttle on the launch pad to skyrocket into space, meaning to your future self. Staring at the stars is inspiring, but it won't make you an astronaut. It's time to launch. A lot of preparation goes into launching a spaceship to blast off into the celestial hemisphere. The voyage only begins, though, with the decision to climb aboard and fly through the atmosphere that stands between you and your destination. It's painful not being who you're meant to be. It's painful wishing you could be that person you see in your mind, and it seems like either it's impossible or it's taking forever to get there. But it doesn't have to be painful. There are choices. This is your life to choose. You can either continue to go through the motions or live the life you were meant to live. You can stay in the harbor and stare at the sea, or you can cross the ocean. You can stare at the stars. You can launch yourself into space. You can stay in that same painful job or create the career you want. You can stare at the phone or you can play with your kids. You can stay up late watching TV or you can get up early and meditate. You can busy yourself on social media and email, or you can make real progress on your goal. You can be miserable in that relationship that you've outgrown, or you can find true love with the person that brings out the best in you. You can sing the song you're meant to sing, or you can keep it bottled inside. These are all choices. Some of these are tough choices, but they are yours and yours alone to make. Jen Sincero, in her book, You Are a Badass, beautifully describes why you must blossom into who you're meant to be with this famous quote. And I love this one. It really resonates. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Your life is only created by you, and we all create our own reality by our mindset, which we talked about earlier, and by the choices we make. You can choose to live a life of happiness and bliss by deciding to do so. But staying tight in your bud is far more painful than the risk it will take for you to blossom. At any stage in life, this holds true. It's never too late to be who you're meant to be. Be honest with yourself. Are you living the life you're meant to live? Are you achieving the one thing that inspires you the most? If not, it's time to blossom. It's time to live life inspired. Remember that Mandela quote from earlier in the workshop? I talked about this when I was talking about big goals. It says, Mandela said, "There's no passion in playing small, in settling for a life that is less than the one you're capable of living." You're capable of living an extraordinary life. Make it big. Do not play small. Do not settle. You know what you're capable of. You just need to get it out of your head, down on paper, and then take action every morning to get you closer to who you're capable of being. But it can't be small. You won't take any action if you have a small goal because it doesn't matter that much. Most people spend their day accomplishing small tasks and going through a bunch of little actions instead of taking big actions for significant blocks of time to get to seemingly impossible goals. It doesn't have to be a ton of time. I mean, you can block 60 to 90 minutes every morning to handle your highest priorities that get you to your goals. But the digital world and fast-paced modern life has trained us to feel busy, but not very productive. All that busyness keeps us from designing a bold vision for our lives and then planning out the journey to get to that bold vision and then the small habits every day that get you there. As Les Brown said, most people fail in life not because they aim too high and miss, but because they aim too low and hit. Don't aim for these low targets accomplished by menial tasks. Aim high. You're meant to live an extraordinary life. If you invest in yourself and start what was recommended here today and will come to you in the emails to follow, the worksheets and the goal setting, you will find true freedom and happiness. To care for others, you must first care for yourself. So you can make excuses or you can awake with intention, look in the mirror, say, I love you, and then implement the steps prescribed here today so that you can return to your natural state and be the person you're meant to be. Don't wait until that still small voice inside you is suppressed to a faint whisper and you don't hear it anymore. You know what you need to do. If you pause for a moment to listen, to truly listen, you will hear your higher power and your inner voice calling you to be the force for great good in this world that you are meant to be. Listen to it. Write down what you hear, and then every day do what is necessary to get you closer to being the brilliant light you're meant to be. See the light in the mirror every day and watch it glow and grow. Life is to be lived and lived out loud. Life is to be enjoyed with enthusiasm. Life is to be shared and spread. Love is to be shared and spread far and wide. The journey isn't always smooth, and roadblocks always pop up unexpectedly, but the tools provided today will help make this journey smoother and get you around those roadblocks faster. Those who love you will be there for you. I love you and will be there for you on your journey. I'm always happy to help guide you up the mountain as you climb to meet your future self. I've been grateful to all my mentors on this journey, and I'm here to help you. As your feet hit the floor tomorrow morning, say to yourself, it's going to be an amazing day. I do this every morning as soon as I wake up or on that short walk to the bathroom. And before I look in the mirror, I say it's going to be an amazing day. And then I look in the mirror, lock eyes with myself, and say, I love you. And then go spread that light out into the world. The world needs your light to shine brightly now more than ever. As you awake with intention, with your goals set and your habits aligned, put down the phone. Stop scrolling. Turn off the negative news and just listen to that still small voice inside you. Listen to yourself and your higher power, and then write down what you hear. Turn what you wrote down into action you can take today to be the person you're meant to be, to live your life of love, happiness, and bliss, to live as your true self. And that's why we're here today, to help you return to your true self with your aligned habits. So if this workshop woke something up in you, know that the course that we have is available and was created to keep you and keep this energy alive. So I mentioned earlier, we started January with the Thrive in 25 8-week habit challenge. We now are doing that again. It was so successful in September, starting Thursday, September 25th. So if you're curious, open, or just a little bit intrigued, you can scan that QR code and the link. And I believe, when you look at it, you'll know if it's right for you because you've already met that version of yourself that lives on the other side of it. But you don't have to wait until that course to start your habits because we're going to make that available to you and we're going to provide the information for you. So this Thrive in 25 group coaching program will start setting your goals and changing your life and going deeper into what we talked today. So if you're ready to transform your life and get clear on your big goals and align your habits, then by all means, check out that QR code. And Chad, I believe we have a discount code for that. I think we'll send that out. I think you get a 50% discount because you attended a workshop. I think you get, if you type I think all caps, habits, there you go. It's in there now. Discount code habits. If you type that in there, I think you get 50% off. I think the course is usually about $997, about $1,000, and you get 50% off. So it's a great value. And you'll see through this 8-week habit challenge, we had so many people get so much out of it. Now, we have a few more minutes left, so I'm happy to answer any questions about the Thrive in 25 course or answer any of your questions about goal setting, as well as answer any questions you might have about setting your habits. So, if you need to go ahead and drop off, that's fine, but I'm here to answer questions for a few minutes if anyone has anything. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining today. It was a real pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much for sharing and being active and participating, in the chat, as well as, coming off and sharing verbally and on camera. So thank you so much. It was a great pleasure to see you all. Have an absolutely wonderful day, rest of your week, and check out the Thrive in 25 course. And I think through those links there, you can get some of our other content. Have a great day. Bye bye.